Hello music fans, March 2025 is over, so it's time to count down my 10 favorite albums in metal, rock, and prog that came out in March 2025, starting with my number 10, which is Imperial Triumphant and their album Goldstar. This is avant-garde, technical, blackened, dissonant death metal with jazz fusion influences. Check out the track Lexington Delirium for a preview here. They're an American band, and this is the 6th album by Imperial Triumphant. They're very unique and interesting. They wear costumes, put out some great singles ahead of time, and I really enjoyed their last album, Spirits of Ecstasy, from 2022 as well. This album has cool guest spots with Dave Lombardo of Slayer fame doing guest percussion parts on one track, and Thomas Huck of Meshuggah on 2 tracks. Mostly intense, weird, experimental, brutal music with all harsh vocals, but the title track is a 1-minute, old-timey barbershop quartet-sounding song in the middle of the album randomly, which is a neat way to break it up. And the outro on the last track, Industry of Misery, really reminds me of the outro of I Want You, She's So Heavy by the Beatles, and I assume that's an intentional nod. My favorite tracks are definitely Lexington Delirium, which features Thomas Huck, and then Hotel Sphinx is another great one. That sounds good to you. Check out Imperial Triumphant and their album Goldstar. At number 9, I'm going to put an EP by a Norwegian band called Sykofant. This is the Red Sun EP. It's progressive rock with jazz fusion and metal influences. Check out the track Embers for a preview here. And I love this band's self-titled debut from 2024 as well. I did a full-length review of that on my channel. Really happy they sent me a promo copy of that on CD, and they also sent me this EP early, which I love as well. Equally as excellent as their debut album. And this EP is the first of 2 interconnected releases, both thematically and musically, with the second EP to arrive later in 2025, and then together the twin EPs will form a cohesive album which will be available in physical formats, vinyl and CD. So really excited to hear the counterpart piece to this and kind of hear how it feels as a whole album instead of just this shorter EP. But even the short EP on its own is great. The first track starts with slow, sustained guitar, dissonant and mysterious. It picks up and gets faster and heavier. It almost reminds me of Mastodon at some points. Then the second track, Red Sun, reminds me a lot of Breathe by Pink Floyd. And the third track, Embers, picks it up again and gets a bit heavier and almost has some metal influence. If you're a fan of Rush, Pink Floyd, and those old school classic rock bands like Led Zeppelin, and then want to hear that mixed with more modern sounding, desert stoner sounding, almost metal, almost grunge, like Queens of the Stone Age, and almost like sludge, like Mastodon, and kind of grungy hard rock, like He Is Legend. Definitely check this EP out. It's a really good listen. That's Red Sun EP by Sykofant. At number 8, I've got Dawn of Ouroboros with Bioluminescence. Or Bioluminescence is the name of the album, and the band is Dawn of Ouroboros, which is atmospheric, progressive post-black metal. And it's got some melodic death metal influences to it as well. Check out the track Slipping Burgundy as a preview, which is the one I heard ahead of time before the album release, and I loved it. I just love how it starts off soft and kind of jazzy, and then it picks up and becomes heavy. This is the 3rd album by Dawn of Ouroboros. They're an American band. They have great female vocals on here from Chelsea Murphy. She can sing like an angel and scream like a demon. Check it out if you're a fan of Wintersea. And I also love the 2nd album by Dawn of Ouroboros, Velvet Incandescence from 2023. Another excellent release. And this 3rd album just continues their excellence. At number 7, I have the band O.R.k with their album Firehose of Falsehoods. This is progressive rock with alternative rock, grunge, metal, art rock, and experimental influences. Check out the track Dive In for a preview. And this is the 5th album by this multinational band that features members from Australia, Italy, and the US. They feature former Porcupine Tree bassist Colin Edwin, former King Crimson drummer Pat Mastelotto, both amazing players. The vocals are by Lorenzo Esposito Fornaciari, aka Lef, and he sounds like Chris Cornell to me. Check this out if you want to hear the sound of Porcupine Tree meets Soundgarden. And it's great that the album ends with a almost 14-minute prog epic called Dive In. It's my favorite track so far. There's another one I think called 16,000 Days, which is another great one that has some almost math rock sounding guitars at the beginning. Great album, Firehose of Falsehoods by O.R.k. At number 6, I've got Spiritbox and their album Tsunami C. This is progressive metalcore, kind of Djent style guitar playing, alternative metal influences in there, think like Deftones vibes, but also some industrial metal, post-metal, and pop influences thrown in. Check out the track Soft Spine to hear one of the heavy tracks on the album. That was one of my favorites. And Spiritbox is a great Canadian band. This is their 2nd album. I thought their debut was a near masterpiece. And great female vocals on here by Courtney. She's one of the best in the business. She can do great screams as well as amazing clean singing. Didn't quite hit me as hard as their debut, Eternal Blue, did. I still kind of like their debut a bit better. But there's many excellent songs here. Soft Spine, which is a heavy, intense banger. Tsunami C, which is a softer, catchier pop banger. And No Loss, No Love, which has weird electronic vocal parts that add some variety and interest to the album. Check it out if you're a fan of Architects and Deftones. It sounds like those bands mixed with pop. And yeah, this has been growing on me every time I listen to it. I enjoy it. That's Tsunami C by Spiritbox. At number 5, I've got Coheed and Cambria and their album Vaxis 3, The Father of Make Believe. This is progressive rock with pop punk, post-hardcore, emo, alternative rock, hard rock, metal, and even electronic influences. One of the tracks that I actually loved a lot is Corner My Confidence, which is a acoustic ballad, so it's not really representative of the album, but I thought it was really well done. This is Coheed and Cambria's 11th album. They're a great American band, and I like the first 2 albums in their Vaxis series, but they haven't quite reached the heights of their previous work, like their 2 good Apollo albums or their 2 Afterman albums or In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3. I think those are all near masterpieces. And while Vaxis 3 doesn't quite get back up to that level of those near masterpieces, I still think it's the best of the Vaxis albums. And it's an excellent album. It has great variety. It has some of their heaviest tracks like Blindside Sunny, although I'm not sure I'm sold on that vibe from Coheed. It features some screams, which are unusual for them. But it's not a dark or heavy song or anything. It's really heavy, but in a fun kind of party way, like happy hardcore meets power pop meets glam metal. Play the Poet's another song that has heavier moments. But then the album also has some really soft tracks. It has some fairly straightforward, almost pop punk tracks. And it has some more adventurous and progressive tracks. And I love how on the album they have melodic themes that repeat from previous albums to give this concept discography thing that they have going on. I don't really follow the story too much, but I do appreciate that they have that overarching narrative and those sonic themes are present to match that. My critiques of this album, though, I sometimes hear auto-tune. I don't think that's really necessary. Claudio could sound great if they just captured a good, solid, natural performance where he nails the pitches naturally. And I wished it focused more on their prog side rather than their accessible side. But the songwriting is just so good. The range of emotions on the album are amazing. There's happy stuff that pumps me up, stuff that makes me sad, hopeful, contemplative, introspective. astonished, in awe. So all those emotions. I'll forgive a little bit of auto-tune, even though I wish it wasn't there. I also really enjoyed the Continuum 2, The Flood, which I think, along with Corner My Confidence, are probably my favorite songs. And then Someone Who Can is a really good, catchy, poppier song. So those are probably my 3 favorite tracks. If you're a Prog fan, you're probably going to want to check out the Continuum Part 2, The Flood, as the best preview track. If you want to hear the acoustic one, then go for Corner My Confidence. And if you want to hear a poppy one, go for Someone Who Can. Great album by Coheed and Cambria, Vaxis 3, The Father of Make Believe. At number 4, I've got a band called Dissocia and their album To Lift the Veil. This is technical progressive death metal with post-metal, groove metal, shoegaze, synthwave, and melodic death metal, and even some deathcore influences. And all the other albums I've mentioned so far, I just put in my excellent tier, but here's where we're getting into the near masterpiece tier with this one. This is a Spanish-American progressive metal band, and it consists of multi-instrumentalist Daniel R. Fleece from Persephone and Eternal Storm. He brings ferocious and convoluted riffs, dreamy synths, extreme and subtle clean vocals. And they've got Gabriel Valcasar from Wormed and Cancer on drums, and Paul R. Fleece adding cinematic violin layers. And this is mixed and mastered by Ukrainian engineer Max Morton, who works with Ginger, Ignia, more. This is a concept album. It's a metaphor for being a growing seed in the asphalted world. They blend a lot of styles here, so definitely check out this album if you're a fan of Persephone, or if you're a fan of Gojira. The harsh vocals sounded like Gojira to me at parts. Some of the fast guitar arpeggios in the intros of the first 2 tracks almost reminded me of Kafo from Animals as Leaders. I did find it kind of weird that the intro of track 1 and 2 are almost identical. That kind of caught me off guard. They're in different keys, but otherwise very similar. Guitar riffing on here, though, is amazing. The drumming, the synths, the vocals, both harsh and clean. Check out the track Existentialist for a preview here, but also Samsara is another great one. Number 3, I've got Tiktaalika and their album Gods of Pangea. So Tiktaalika is Charlie Griffiths of Haken. I loved his first solo album that went where he released it under his name, Charlie Griffiths, and the album was called Tiktaalika. This time, he's branded himself, the artist name, as Tiktaalika, and the album's Gods of Pangea. This is progressive thrash metal with groove metal influences. Check out the track Lost Continent featuring Thomas Giles Rogers from Between the Berry and Me. That was probably one of my favorites on the album. And the title track is also really awesome, very thrash metal inspired. If you're a fan of Megadeth, definitely check this out. It's kind of like Megadeth meets Haken and Between the Berry to Me. But there's also nice melodic guitar leads in the intro that sound like Iron Maiden leads in a lot of the tracks. And the rest of the album continues the sound of that title track, Gods of Pangea. Charlie got some great guest vocalists here to work with him, including some vocalists I love, like Rhodey Walker of Protest the Hero on Fault Lines, and of course Tommy Rogers, who I mentioned earlier. He also features Daniel DeJong on 3 tracks and Vladimir Lalich on 2 tracks. They do a great job too. The last track on Spotify is an instrumental bonus track. It has some riffs that sound like Metallica riffs. And then other riffs almost sound like power metal bands. And another track that's really awesome here is Mesozoic Mantras. So really great album if you want to hear some kind of late 80s, early 90s thrash sounds, that kind of guitar playing, that kind of production and composition, but quite progressive and technical and brutal at times, but also melodic at times. A very cool album, Gods of Pangea by Tiktaalika. Number 2, I've got Dessiderium and their album Keys to the Palace. This is progressive melodic death metal, and it's the 5th album by this American project. Check out the track In the Midst of May for a preview. So Dessiderium is a one-man band with everything done by Alex Haddad, all instruments, vocals, and production. If you're a fan of Wilderun, Wintersun, Opeth, and Devin Townsend, check this out. And big thank you to Rhyme Signatures for putting this on my radar. My favorite track currently is In the Midst of May, but really every track is amazing. The intro guitar riffs on Keys to the Palace Part 1 sound like they would fit right in a Devin Townsend song. And they've got a really nice mix on this album of harsh and clean vocals. That sounds good to you. Check out Keys to the Palace by Dessiderium. And lastly, at number 1, I'm going to put an EP. I don't usually do this, but I'm a big fan of this band Nospun. In particular, I'm more so a fan of their debut album, their full-length opus. But I also really love this new Ozai EP. It's a re-recorded EP from when the band was called Ozai that they made back in 2014. But here they re-recorded it with better performances, better production. This is kind of progressive metal with Djent style guitar playing. Check out the track, The Effervescent Power, for a preview here. I love that one. And I've listened to the original EP as well. I enjoyed that too. It was already excellent as it was, but the performance and production capabilities have improved since 2014, so this new version is even better. They swapped the order of a couple tracks, Mecha and The Effervescent Power, on this version. I'm not sure why. And they also added a new song that wasn't on the 2014 EP, right in the middle of the EP, called Out With a Bang. So I think this 2025 version of this EP improved the song's performance and production up to a point where it gets a near masterpiece tier level from me. But don't come into it expecting this to be as good as their full-length album Opus. I think that one's a true masterpiece. But this is a great little prog metal snack to tide us over until the next full-length album from Nospun, which I hope will come soon. And do note that this is stylistically different from their debut full-length because it features some harsh vocals. I know not everyone's into that. The focus here is still on clean vocals, though. So I think if you like their debut, definitely check this out. If you like bands like Dream Theater, you'll love their debut album, or Haken, you'll love their debut album. And I think you'll also love this EP, although the EP maybe leans a little bit more towards the Djent and some more harsh vocal influences, like maybe Periphery. And my favorite track is The Effervescent Power, but every track's amazing. Check out Ozai EP by Nospun. And that's it for my 10 favorite tracks of 10 favorite albums of March 2025. Definitely let me know what you think of this list down in the comments. Which albums on here do you like the most? And did I introduce you to anything that inspired you to check it out? Let me know if you like it, if you do. And what are your 10 favorite albums of March 2025? Or if you don't have 10, like whatever, whichever ones you like, put them down in the comments. I'm always looking for new great stuff that came out this year. Or, if you think, hey, if you like this, you should check out that. I'm always looking for great music recommendations. Let me know. And if you're always on the hunt for new great metal, rock, and prog music, hit that subscribe button, because every week I talk about my first impressions of new albums that came out in metal, rock, and prog. So you're not going to want to miss it. Peace out.